Welcome to your First 60 Days podcast, dedicated to helping new senior executives settle in and make the positive impact. Today I'm speaking with Nancy Parks, a senior HR professional. Our conversation is really going into all sorts of territories which are incredibly helpful for new leaders, including the importance of being super clear on who you are even before you walk in the door. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Nancy.
Hi.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for creating space in what I know is a very busy diary to be alongside me this morning.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure, Tess.
Of course, you know the territory of this conversation is all about executive onboarding. And I'm quite often using the phrase, we're cracking the code for better executive onboarding, which will lead into my third book. I'd love to hear, because you have had an extensive journey, initially in commercial roles, specifically in accountancy and finance. I'd love to hear what you have done in your own onboarding that's gone really well. But also for the benefit of those preparing for their onboarding, with the benefit of hindsight, what didn't go so well and what was your insight from that?
I mean, look, I might start with what didn't go quite so well.
Okay.
Because then I get that out of the way, get my traumatic experience out of the way. I wasn't an executive at this point in time, but actually it was probably the first time that I realised I properly messed up in starting a new role. It was a move within an organisation. Was really excited about it. Maybe we don't give that enough time, and I definitely didn't. And it was a move within finance, and I'd gone into this new team and I was still doing some of my old role. And actually I didn't realise the onboarding hadn't gone well until I had my review about 3 months in.
Wow, okay.
So we kind of hit mid-year review points.
Yes.
And I was given a subpar rating. And I was mortified, technically doing two jobs still, because I hadn't quite got rid of my old job. But I hadn't spent enough time thinking about what do I need to do, asking questions, being curious. Am I doing what's needed? You know, and I said I wasn't exec level. I was much more junior than that, but I hadn't given it any thought at all. Maybe I had a bit of entitlement, or just, you know, expecting other people to help me or tell me or whatever else. And I think there is something about that, you know, being really curious yourself and checking in a lot more. But I was just like, I'm busy enough. I've got enough to do. I'd moved office locations as part of the role. So yeah, there was lots where I just messed up. And reflecting back, I put a lot of that on me, actually, of going, I had just rolled with it. Rolling with it isn't a good place to be.
What a great learning, though. So let's draw out from that. What would be the key things that you would give them as wise counsel?
I think it is giving yourself the time, and it is an emotional change that you're going through as well, and in giving yourself the space to deal with that and to recognize what's going on, but giving yourself that time to go, what am I here to do? What do I need to look at, you know, and understand that. My other example of a good time was, if I can kind of lead on to that, was actually where I did the complete opposite. And I spent, this is quite extreme, but I spent 3 years preparing myself when I moved in, you know, moving towards being a chief people officer. I spent 3 years preparing myself technically, leadership wise, relationships that I had with people, and moving myself into what I thought I needed to be, which turned out it was the right kind of direction, but also checking in. You know, had a really good manager and mentor at the time, who is a friend of yours as well, and made a massive difference. And there was still things that I needed to do when I was in the new role and onboarding.
And what I hear built into, you know, what you're strongly recommending is take the time, create the space, and do what I call the inner work. The challenging thing, though, is, let's also put it into the real world. We do say that, but often the busyness takes over and then the space gets lost. How do you encourage those new executives to really create the space, rather than, you know, say it but not really, you know, give it the airtime but not actually make it happen in reality?
And I would say this is still probably a journey that I'm on in terms of with others necessarily. And I do think we spend a lot of time on hiring and think, yay, you know, fantastic. But it is, I think, as, you know, the HR director, and then working with, whoever they're reporting into. And sometimes that can be, quite far removed in terms of their day to day. Really thinking a lot more about that and making sure they have the permission. That's completely normal, really, really normal to feel useless, like you've made the wrong decision, that you know nothing. And it will come, and don't overgo one way or the other and try and be something that you're not. You've been hired for a reason, and understand that, stay close to that, know who you are, and work from that place. I think it is about knowing yourself, but knowing it's also going to be hard.
Eyes wide open. Yeah, I love that.
That imposter syndrome, self-doubt, all of that is going to be really strong and heightened. I don't know what the unwritten rules are here. I don't know anybody. I haven't got anyone who I can call upon. So sometimes there are those kind of areas, but it can be daunting, and for executives, lonely, right? You're not joining a team as you might have done earlier in your career, where everyone's there kind of sitting alongside you. You're generally coming in with eyes looking up at you going, okay, who are you? What are you going to do for me? And that's daunting.
It helps you hold on to that inner clarity whilst you're figuring out what is it we need to do here.
And it's not often, actually, it's probably the only time in that role that you will have the capacity in your working week, say, to really spend time on what do I need to know? Who do I need to know? Why do I need to know them? What do I not know that's really important because I'm coming in as an outsider? What do I bring? What do I leave behind? Who do I want to be? Because you can reinvent yourself, right? If you've
it's an opportunity.
Completely. And that's not to say change who you are, but there might be some things where you go, actually, I didn't quite do this right before. Maybe, what do I want to do and bring? And you never get that again. So that's why I think it is so critically important. I think it's a two-part piece of almost going, what does the organisation bring to that and allow, and what do they put in place? But also as an individual, it's your responsibility to make sure you get what you need.
I want to pick up on your comment there about arriving with curiosity. What do you think is important in terms of this new executive coming in to really understand the DNA and the history that's helped them arrive at the DNA? How can they do that?
So what I think, it comes back to that curiosity, but curiosity in the right way. Not just who do you think you need to speak to because they might have an important title or be in those senior roles, but I think really speaking to as broad a range of people, and doing that in a way that puts them at ease. So you will actually hear what you need to hear, not just what people feel guarded to hear. Be really cautious about how you go about doing that to get the most from it. And that isn't a manual that a company gives you, because it's all about your personal approach and your personal style. And the biggest thing about being a leader or an executive is those relationships, right? We do work through people. So setting that yourself up in the right way from those early days, really, really important.
I'd love your views on how to move the system forward and what it needs.
Probably see it happening quite often, because in some ways you kind of go, well, that's what you've brought me in for. No two businesses are the same, no two teams are the same. And I completely agree that understanding where they've been, what that journey's been like. So there's a lot of entrenched ways of thinking, not just ways of working, and knowing how everything's going to roll. And then someone new comes in and starts, ripping things up, thinking this is what needs to happen. Everyone else is still a bit reeling. Or you could be in a situation where there's been multiple changes of leadership, which once again is like, oh, we just don't know which way is up. And oh, it's another change. How long is this? And any variation in between. So understanding that, and understanding what is some of that baggage, and is that what's great that we need to keep, what absolutely is fundamental to this team, what do you all hate, right? What's holding you back? They're the kind of curiosity. It's understanding I'm going to have these inclinations, but hold it back to really understand what the landscape is, and what you're really dealing with, and how that will impact people.
If I may, I want to segue across to this whole person in front of me, a mum of 4 adopted kids. I'd love to hear a little bit of that experience. And then if you can find a way to relate, because you've onboarded 4 new kids into a family. I mean, my goodness, what
Yeah.
can we learn from that?
Yes. Long story short, couldn't have our own children. Both me and my husband made a quick decision not to spend years down the IVF route. We wanted a family, not a baby. So we ended up being approved to adopt these 4 children all in one go.
Wow.
Talk about a baptism of fire from literally having no children in the house. We had a 3-week onboarding with the children,
Right.
which is actually quite long for
Oh, okay.
normally it's only a week, but because there was 4, we then had a longer process, which I suppose actually really pertinent, and maybe I hadn't thought about it quite in that same way. But gradually building up, getting to know them. The first meeting was literally, I'll never forget it, I don't think in my life, but going to the foster carer's house, and it was literally, we were there for 2 hours, and we had time with each of the children individually. They were in their Sunday best, they, you know, just in their best dresses and best clothes for the boys. We had this build up of onboarding, and look, if I think about it from a work context, it was really organized, it was really well planned. We knew exactly what we were doing every single day. We had rest days. The time built up over, so it was like 2 hours to start with. It was always in the foster carer's house. Then it was maybe a trip out. They had a video to view of us the night before. Oh my God, that was petrifying. Recording a video is just hilarious. Trying to tour them around our house and everything. I remember my brother-in-law filmed it for us, and it's still, you know, quite a funny watch back. But actually really well document, you know, kind of process for them. They all had a book as well to explain stuff, so they could always refer back to it in their own time. So actually a really great experience of the first 3 weeks, and then obviously they moved in, and I had 3 more weeks off work, and then I went back to full-time work. My husband stayed at home. So that was quite a transition as well. When they first moved in, it was just like petrifying in the sense of, what are we doing? We're doing no better than the foster carers were. I mean, of course, they were great foster carers, but lots of turmoil and emotion and trying to do the best and talk about history. And, you know, we have always honoured our kids' past. Beautiful. And I've always been very open, which is why I have no problem talking about it, because you need to know. You need to have that understanding and make your own decision about what you do with that. And if you choose that you don't want to know anymore, that's fine. But the door is always open there for us to talk about it. Because I don't think there ever is an ending in this. Going back to kind of that early conversation, it's part of, you know, truly is their DNA, right? Their DNA is not mine.
Fundamentally who they are.
So so it's a real fascinating, I suppose, way of thinking
real
about
life
it.
Example.
Completely, but wouldn't change it for the world.
That's amazing. Huge admiration for you, my goodness. And what you really in a beautifully, in a magnificent way, are underlining, you and your husband were clear on who you were, and you know what you're up for in the world, and put yourself out there for what I'd imagine is a pretty significant significant emotional journey.
Yes. Oh, completely. And still to this day is an emotional journey. I don't think that ever stops. But 2 things it has fundamentally done for me. I would never be doing the job I'm doing now if I hadn't adopted children. I'd still be working in finance. The process of adoption made me love psychology, and I haven't studied it in depth in that way,
you've
but
got a real lived experience of
completely,
it.
and through the training that you go through before you adopt, you know, not just what people do, but why they do it was literally for me like eye-opening. But also my levels of resilience are super high, and how I take care of myself, and really going, I have to look after myself first, you know. As they say on a plane, you always put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help anybody else. And when you adopt 4 children, you have to live and breathe that. I'm not perfect.
There's no such thing in my view.
Exactly. If you're perfect, where's the room to grow, right? I'm like,
exactly. But it's also naive.
Yes, completely.
Have you had the chance and the right moment to ask the children what their experience of, I'm going to call it onboarding, because of course it's much more than that, but how did they find that experience?
It's interesting because they were, I think, I haven't asked them directly, but indirectly from conversations we have, they have scant memories of it in some regards. I think some of that is, you know, they've had traumatic start in life. So actually, sometimes for them, change is really hard. Getting better as they're getting older, and there's a lot of work to do. Being adopted isn't the answer. It's the start of a rebuild. In that way, which is a really long journey and one that will probably continue for the rest of their lives.
The reason I ask that is because I think one of the things that we can sometimes lose sight of, if I come back to the organizational setting, we can lose sight of is that onboarding period is the period at which we are working with belonging. And that new person, even when they're clear on who they are, is trying to find their place in this new organization. And they've got either conscious or less conscious, do I belong here? Do I fit here? How can I add value here? And so there's that inner tussle of staying grounded. It can be helpful to bring back a real human lens to that's what's going on here, and be able to remind them it's okay for you to take your time. If I were one of those new executives, what would be your few things that you would want me to not just hear on day one, but remember in my first 30, 60-ish days? What would be those few key pieces of advice?
For me, I would always want to start with the emotional cycle of change, right? There's going to be times where you're going to feel a bit crap. You're going to feel like, what have I done? I shouldn't be here. And that is completely normal, right? And the aim is to get you through that as quickly as possible. Second thing is just be curious and take the time to understand the people, the organization, the history, and who you are. And this is why we brought you in, right? Because I think sometimes you hire someone, but you never tell them why. Why were they the person that stood out for you? You might give feedback to the candidates who didn't make it, but the ones who do make it, you're kind of like, great, you've got the job. And they're like, oh, fab, but you don't tell them why. This is why we really wanted you to come in. So kind of reinforcing that. And I think then saying, how are we going to support you? So I often offer that safe space just to be, I'm here if you need me, just ask. And sometimes it's like, should we just grab coffee? Those type of things have just been, how's everything going?
Nancy, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for being willing to take that into different territory. It's been very insightful. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. It's been my absolute pleasure.